For 2,000 years, his name has been an insult, a curse word for the ultimate, unforgivable treason, Judas Iscariot. History paints him as a creature of pure, unadulterated greed, a man who sold the Son of God for a heavy purse. Yet, the historical record contains a curious detail that complicates this assumption of a massive payout. This chart breaks down the actual value of his infamous payout. 30 pieces of silver was not a fortune. Under the ancient law of Moses, it was the exact legal compensation paid to a master if his slave was gored by an ox. It was a deliberate theological mockery, an insult, not a bribe. This leaves us staring into a terrifying philosophical void. Orthodox Christianity maintains that without the crucifixion, there is no resurrection or salvation. The cross was the predetermined will of God. To get there, someone had to hand him over. If he wasn't doing it to get rich, and he was witnessing literal miracles on a daily basis, what actually drove the disciples' trusted treasurer to sell out his master? To understand the betrayal, we have to look at the man's background. Judas was an outsider. The other 11 disciples were rough, uneducated fishermen from Galilee in the north. Judas was a Judean. He came from a more educated, cosmopolitan, and urban environment. Some historians trace his roots even further. They argue his surname Iscariot is a corruption of Sicarii, the daggermen. This was a radical, violent sect of Jewish Zealots, historically known for assassinating armed Roman soldiers in crowded city streets. If Judas sympathized with these revolutionaries, he followed Jesus for his potential as a weapon. He saw a man who could command storms and raise the dead, the ultimate military general to slaughter the Roman legions and free Jerusalem. Jesus trusted him with the group's finances, making him the treasurer. While the other disciples listened to sermons on mountaintops, Judas had to figure out the logistics of buying bread for 13 men in hostile cities. But the teachings of the master clashed with the expectations of the disciple. He preached turning the other cheek. He demanded paying Roman taxes. He refused to take up arms. To a revolutionary seeking a violent uprising, this message amounted to political surrender. This frustration boiled over 6 days before the Passover, at the table of Simon the leper. A woman named Mary approached Jesus and broke open a sealed alabaster jar, pouring thick, imported spikenard oil over his head and feet. This oil was worth an entire year's wages for a working man, dumped into the dirt in a single moment. For the pragmatist balancing the books, this was an act of obscene madness. Judas reacted with calculated anger at seeing the limited budget wasted on a momentary emotional display. Jesus didn't defend his treasurer. He publicly humiliated him. He told Judas to leave her alone, declaring the oil was preparation for his impending burial. This public rebuke shattered the illusion. His Messiah was never going to raise an army. He was planning to die. And Judas decided he would not die alongside a pacifist. He continued to mimic a loyal friend at the Last Supper. He accepted a piece of dipped bread, a cultural mark of supreme honor, while the silver was already resting securely in his pocket. Under the cover of night, Judas left the city. He led heavily armed temple guards out toward the Mount of Olives, guiding them to the walled Garden of Gethsemane, the exact place he knew Jesus would be vulnerable. To identify the rabbi in the darkness, he didn't point a finger or raise a sword. He walked slowly up to the man he had faithfully followed for years, looked him in the eye, and kissed him on the cheek. He weaponized the universal symbol of affection to mark his master for death. Judas likely expected a standard political arrest, perhaps hoping to force Jesus into a display of power. Instead, Friday morning brought the reality of a man beaten to a bloody pulp and condemned to die. The political gamble had failed. The guilt was catastrophic. Judas suffered a complete psychological collapse as he realized he hadn't just betrayed a leader, he had murdered innocence itself. He tried to buy back his soul by hurling the cursed blood money at the high priests in the temple. He met only with cold apathy. They told him the responsibility was his alone. He fled the city gates and ran toward the desolate, rocky field of potters. Peter denied Jesus and wept in repentance, but Judas fell into absolute despair. He believed only in the law of his own guilt.
Decades later, ancient Gnostic texts like the Gospel of Judas attempted to rewrite history. These fragmented papyrus scraps claim Judas was a willing accomplice, fulfilling a secret divine request to free Christ's spirit from his physical body. While the mainstream church dismissed this as fiction, its existence highlights a profound discomfort with the mechanics of the crucifixion. We struggle with a divine plan that utilizes a man's evil intentions. Judas proves that proximity to miracles does not change a human heart. A person can witness the impossible every day, but if their mind is locked on a different prize, they remain entirely in the dark. It leaves us with a final question. What if Judas had run to the cross instead of the cliff? What if he had just waited 3 days? Judas ended his story because he believed his own sin outweighed the mercy of the man he betrayed. He chose the rope, and in doing so, he cemented his place as a cautionary tale for eternity.